This is definitely a masterpiece with the best visual experience. It is a rare science fiction masterpiece since the Inception movie series in the past 10 years. Every scene in the movie is as exquisite as a work of art, and the special effects level is even higher than Hollywood blockbusters. When I first watched it, I thought it was the end of the world, but it turned out to be not the case after careful observation. Victor woke up in the morning and suddenly found himself in such a strange world. The mold spots in the refrigerator seemed to be making a silent protest. When I opened the design drawings casually, they were full of signs of decay. Looking up, the ceiling seemed to have turned into a black hole, staring at Victor. It seemed that it would swallow Victor in the next second. Didn't it feel like time was going backwards? When Victor walked out of the door carefully, he could still meet the separated neighbors with broken limbs on the wall. Frightened Victor, he ran away immediately, thinking he had seen a ghost. When he ran downstairs and looked up, he saw scenes that were more horrifying than the last. The whole city had become a twisted ruin, and the streets and alleys were full of signs of decay. People were also incomplete, as if all the laws of physics had been disrupted. High-rise buildings and roads were upside down and broken, and there was a deep silence all around. Just when Victor was terrified, a black, liquid-like black monster suddenly jumped down from the top of a building in the distance. It was extremely fast and rushed towards Victor with huge sickle-like claws. The scene was horrifying. After a deafening roar, several fully armed people suddenly appeared. It turned out that they had saved Victor's life with a shell, but before they could, in detail, everyone started to run for their lives in a hurry. The captain kicked the street lamp away with one foot. He was so strong that the black monster quickly got up and chased them. They ran all the way to the end of the broken road and pushed Victor down. They actually came to the bustling Chinatown. Several people continued to run forward. When they opened a door curtain, they saw another broken bridge in front of them, as if connecting two worlds together. A closer look showed that they were actually in Venice. It really made people wonder if they were dreaming. They ran to the bridge and jumped without hesitation, and actually landed directly on the upside-down roof. At this time, the black monster also caught up. Victor hesitated for a moment, but still jumped down with gritted teeth, but he didn't control it well, and almost fell down. Fortunately, his companions pulled Victor in time. But the black monster was still chasing them, so everyone had to hide behind the stone pillars. It turned out that they had no way to retreat. At the critical moment, a companion rushed out with a grenade. He was ready to fight the black monster to the death. There was another loud noise, and finally the black monster was slowed down. Everyone took the opportunity to evacuate safely. On the way, Victor curiously asked Fly where this was. Only then did they know that Victor was originally in the real world. He was in a coma due to a car accident and accidentally entered this strange space. It turned out that this world was actually pieced together by the memories of those who were in a coma. In reality, once someone falls into a coma, the memory will bring the coma person into this strange space. For example, if the coma person remembers a tree will grow out of thin air here. If the coma person remembers that there is a bridge, then the bridge will also grow out of thin air. Will appear here. All the things in memory will take root here, but once the memory begins to blur and forget, these things will slowly rot and disappear, so the world will be in a mess, like an overturned pallet. And those scary-looking black monsters were actually originally human, but they have become brain-dead vegetative people. In reality, Victor was forced to get into a dilapidated bus and followed the hidden passage to the survivors' base. Here gathered a group of survivors who did not want to return to reality. Everyone has their own abilities. Some can split themselves. Some can heal themselves. And the captain's unique skill is that he is so strong that he can grab the shells in his hand with a casual grab. In order to stimulate Victor's potential, everyone took turns to hit Victor as a sandbag, refined and sent a robot to provoke Victor. Unfortunately, Victor's superpowers were still not forced out, and everyone was quite disappointed. Only Jan had a different opinion. During the chat, Victor decided to follow Captain Dali to try. Because superpowers can only be awakened at the critical moment of life and death, Victor once again stepped into this mysterious and tempting alien space. Who would have thought that the huge statue in front of him would actually stretch out a hand, and it turned out to be a heroic female warrior when looking down. There is also a Sakyamuni Buddha standing opposite, and if you continue to walk forward, there is actually a tunnel hanging in the air, which is really mind-blowing. Then the group came to a complex giant factory. The scene was so cool that it was dazzling. The challenge came as soon as the ghost summoned. A clone attracted the enemy's attention, and Dali rushed up and killed the enemy directly. A few people took advantage of the chaos to sneak into the factory gate, but it was still a bit difficult to enter the hangar because of the tight guards outside. Dali, who was a tough guy, walked out alone and threw a grenade, and 3 people flew out directly. Successfully attracted the enemy's firepower, and Dali then punched and kicked the enemy, but there were too many enemies and bullets swept over like raindrops. The teammate could only throw another grenade, and the situation was out of control for a while. As a result, Victor still didn't stimulate his potential and curled up in the corner. After a hail of bullets, everyone finally knocked down all the enemies. Going deep into the hangar, it was simply unrealistic. The factory and the ice sea were actually combined into one, and there was a huge submarine parked on the ice. This time their mission, it was to remove the torpedoes from the submarine to replenish ammunition. After the torpedoes were removed, they used pulleys to hoist them out. Unfortunately, 3 black monsters appeared in the distance and scared everyone. The torpedoes slipped out of their hands and it looked very dangerous. At the critical moment, Victor silently made a wish in his heart. Unexpectedly, a slide suddenly appeared above his head, and the torpedo slid down safely. Everyone was a little surprised to see that Victor's superpower was to create things out of thin air. It was simply amazing. When Victor returned to the base, he remembered that he was an architect in reality. At this time, Jan said that those black monsters were actually comatose people after brain death. They would only go to places in their memories. As long as we can create a safe island out of thin air, the black monsters will not come close, and Victor can do it just right. The next day, everyone left the base and followed Jan and Victor to find a place to build a safe island. Victor passed through a fog and saw a huge plane hanging in the air. Victor turned his head and saw a black monster behind him. Before Victor could react, he was lying on the grass. When Victor regained consciousness, his companions quickly pulled him up. The 2 looked down and found that the black monster on the ground was slowly standing up. They ran away in panic. They returned to the team in a panic. Everyone realized that one of Daligay's hands had turned into a black monster. Before long, black monsters appeared from all directions, like a tide. Humans were directly besieged by black monsters, and the scene was very chaotic. Victor and the remaining companions fled all the way, trying to retreat to the factory. At this moment, a white light suddenly shone from the sky. Victor felt weak all over, and his eyes went black, and he fainted. When Victor opened his eyes, he found himself back in the real world. He turned around and looked at the side. On the bed next to him, the female warrior fly from the other world was lying. At this time, Victor finally figured it out. It turned out that everything was a trap set by Jan. He found that people would enter the other world after they fell into a coma, so he tricked the patient into the basement for an injection. In this way, he could have a large group of followers in the other world. Jan actually knew that he was in a dream long ago, but he was unwilling to return to reality. Victor, who understood the truth, felt angry. But for the safety of Fly, he could only bow his head temporarily and agreed to help Jan build a safe place in the dream. The whole island. This way, Jan will let them go, so Victor sank into darkness again. At this time, his companions were being chased by the black monster, and Victor was quick-witted and built a bridge out of thin air on the grass. The bridge fell down and crushed the black monster. Everyone escaped death, and at this time Jan appeared to remind Victor that he should fulfill his promise. Victor's mind moved, and with a wave of his hand, the building blueprint in his mind instantly became a reality. I saw light and shadow interweaving in the void, and high-rise buildings rose from the desolate land. The original flow. The corner of death became brightly lit, and a city like a miracle appeared in front of everyone. When everything was settled, Victor asked them if they could leave. Jan sneered, "Don't you remember what you look like in the real world?" The astronomer was so autistic that he didn't even dare to step out of his house. Victor was just an architect who was not appreciated for his talent. No one in reality appreciated his work. Only here can they be useful. Everyone was uneasy after hearing this. When they were hesitating, Jan suddenly turned hostile and said that since everyone knew it was a dream, they couldn't let you go back alive. Victor was so angry that he wanted to fight, but Jan waved his hand lightly and he fell to the ground injured. Only then did he understand Jan's power. Fortunately, Fly helped Victor heal his wounds in time. Finally, the three decided to find an exit to wake up. When they returned to the survivors' base, they found that Jan's room actually led directly to the hospital. They walked into the hospital but didn't know how to wake up for a while. Victor racked his brains and suddenly had a flash of inspiration. He remembered the painting he saw on the wall of the hospital before he fainted. Yes, it was it. But just at this time, the astronomer was unfortunately corrupted, leaving only Victor and Fly. Victor finally realized that he could return to reality as long as he walked into the things he saw before he fell into a coma. Just as the two were preparing to act, Jan had been waiting for a long time. After a fierce battle, the two were knocked to the ground, and Victor was picked up by Jan. At the critical moment, Jan was pierced through the chest by a black monster. Surprisingly, this black monster turned out to be the Captain Dali. Not only did he come back, he could control himself. Dali did not hurt them. Instead, he let them go and chose to stay in the other world forever. The end of the story. Victor returned to ordinary life and was still the unknown architect. Unfortunately, his works were still unseen. Fly gently encouraged him not to lose heart. Just when Victor turned around, he pulled out a letter from under the magazine. It was the invitation letter from the hospital. It turned out that he also longed to return to the other world. Now he has mastered the method of entering. Think about it from another perspective. If it were you, would you choose to be an ordinary person in reality or a big boss in the other world?